Hey, what's going on? This is Sports Truth. I'm your favorite host in the entire world, Jordan Harris. All right, another one bites the dust, y'all. Another one is leaving. Another one's getting out of here. So let's talk about who that is. If you saw the thumbnail on this, talked about how uh, leading rusher enters the transfer portal, and as these guys once sang, "Bye, bye, bye." Right? If you know who that is on the top left, shout out to you. If this is one of your favorite groups, I don't know what to say to you, but God bless. But we all know they once sang "Bye Bye Bye," so God bless them. But anyways, um, who are we talking about? We're talking about Henry Parish. So Henry Parish decides that he's going to be transferred from the University of Miami. Also, shout out to Roscoe Parrish. If you remember him, shout out to you. Because for whatever reason, I've been reading Henry Parrish all day, but whenever it comes out of my mouth, when I'm talking to people about the guy that's transferred, I keep saying Roscoe Parrish is transferred. And they're like, who? And I'm like, oh yeah, my bad, Henry Parrish. So I wanted to make sure I didn't screw that up on this whole conversation. So what I want to do today is I want to read from an article that I found online, a few different excerpts from that, and then I'm going to give my thoughts about the article and then my overall thoughts about what this could mean for the Hurricanes long term and just my thoughts on this happening in general. Okay, so start at the top. This is from David Lake wrote this article, so I want to make sure I give him some credit for it. I'm just going to read a few parts of it. It starts off by saying veteran running back Henry Parrish is entering the NCAA transfer portal. After participating in the first week of spring football, Parish informed the Miami Hurricanes coaching staff of his intentions to enter the NCAA transfer portal during the spring window. Parish led the Hurricanes in rushing over the past two seasons, totaling over 600 yards in each year, while totaling 10 touchdowns. He came from Ole Miss the year before. He totaled 2,057 yards and 15 touchdowns at the college level so far. So he's had a really good career so far. He goes on to talk about what Mario Cristobal said during the press conference, which I think this is pretty important. He says, this is a quote from Cristobal: Henry will not be with the program anymore. He will go in the portal, and we wish him the best. It's best for him and the University of Miami for him to move on. I'm thankful for his contribution here, and I wish him the best. End quote. All right. So I want to read a couple more sections of this. First, saying Miami now features three healthy scholarship running backs, which is redshirt sophomore Trevante Citizen, redshirt freshman Chris Johnson, and early enrollee Chris Wheatley Humphrey. Projected starting running back Mark Fletcher, who ran for 514 yards and 5 touchdowns as a true freshman in 23, is out as he recovers from a foot injury that probably most of y'all remember he got playing against Rutgers in the bowl game. We also have A.J. Allen, who transferred from Nebraska last year, ran for 361 yards, 5 touchdowns in 2023, and is being held out in the spring due to an injury. The last couple of parts, I want to scroll down. Cristobal's quote, so he starts by saying, we feel really good about the competitive nature of that room, talking about the running back room. He says, we feel good about the coaching they're getting and where they're heading this season. Miami is expected to explore the portal for a running back during the spring window as well. All right, so wanted to make sure I read all of that, and then I want to give you some comments, some of my thoughts about some of the portions in this, and then I want to just give my general thoughts on this whole situation. All right, so the first thing, I want to talk about Cristobal's quote. All right, so he's quoted by saying, let me go through here and find it real quick. The part that I want to point out is when he says it's best for him and for the University of Miami for him to move on. So when I read that, when I see that, I automatically think there got to be a little trace of something happened in the air. I don't know what might have happened, but it feels like there's a trace of something happened here. And if you're wondering what I mean by that, it's like, sometimes when an employee gets fired from a job, or if you grew up playing sports and you have somebody on your team and it seems like they're getting along just fine, seems like everything is going well, and you come to practice one day and that player is gone. You're like, well, what's going on with him? Sometimes if you hear the coach saying, it just wasn't working out. Cool. Maybe nothing, maybe just over time they grew tired of each other and they went their separate ways. But when you hear the coaches saying it was good for them and it was also best for us too that they leave, that tells you something probably happened. Maybe there was a blow up after practice one day. Maybe there was constant complaining behind the scenes of not getting enough playing time. But I'm thinking this was not just one of them things where it just dissolved over time. To me, it feels like maybe something happened behind the scenes that we didn't know, where there was a blow up after practice or something like that. That's what kind of there's traces of that when I read that. When somebody says it was best for them, but also best for us that he left. That makes me say, yeah, something wasn't quite going right there. Also, I want to talk about a portion in the article where talked about Trevante Citizen being one of the healthy running backs. I believe Trevante Citizen is finally going to have a really good year. Y'all know that he's had all kind of health problems, knee issues, and all kind of just health problems left and right. And a lot of us were happy to see him finally playing in the bowl game. And maybe he didn't play as much as you hoped he would, but I do think it was best to give him a little bit of burn during that game, and then give him that off season to make sure everything is working right. But I think he'll get plenty of playing time this season behind Mark Fletcher, and looking forward to that. I'll have another video pretty soon, maybe tomorrow, maybe tomorrow about Trevante Citizen, because I've got some thoughts about him as well. The next part I want to talk about is how they say redshirt sophomore Trevante Citizen is available. There's also redshirt freshman Chris Johnson. I've been reading all over the internet, all over comment sections of different videos that I've watched about how Chris Johnson for the Hurricanes is Chris Johnson, CJ2K's son. I did a little bit of research for y'all, okay? Let me tell you this. The name Chris is the 28th most common name in America. The name Johnson, well, also, Chris, there's 1.3 million Chris's estimated in America also. The last name Johnson is the second most common name in America. So if Chris is the 28th most common name in America and Johnson is the second most common name, can you imagine how many Chris Johnsons there are in the world? Now, every time we see a Chris Johnson play football, and he just so happens to be a running back, and he just so happens to be fast, that does not mean that it's got to be CJ2K's son. It's not. They're not related at all. So I want to put that out there because I don't know what that's about, but I've read that all over the internet. People saying, this is CJ2K's son. And I'm like, no. So I went ahead and did some quick research on that just to put that out there. It's not his son. Johnson is the second most. It's the second most common name in America. Can you guess? I want to see if you put in the comment what you would guess the most common last name is in America. If Johnson is the second most common, what do you think is the most common? Curious if you can guess that. Put that in the comment section what you think it is before you Google it. All right. Next part I want to talk about is Chris Wheatley Humphrey because I really wasn't too familiar with him. Talked about how he's an early enrollee. He's going to be available in the running back section, running back room, I should call it. Wasn't too familiar with him, so I was like, who is that? But he was a 3-star running back out of Fort Lauderdale. So he's an early enrollee. He's hoping to get a little bit of burn this year. He probably won't touch the field too much. I'm guessing he probably won't touch the field at all. As y'all know, running back and wide receiver, there's a bunch of bodies in each one of those rooms. It's how it always is in the NFL and in college football. So to have so many running backs ahead of him who actually have experience, I really don't expect him to touch the field this year. The next person is A.J. Allen, 4-star prospect. Again, I was not very familiar with A.J. Allen either. Transfer from Nebraska, 4-star prospect. And then he ended up being a 3-star transfer. So coming out of high school, he was 4-star. Now that he's transferring, he's considered a 3-star. All right. But yeah, he came from Nebraska. We'll see where he fits in the pecking order as far as the running back room goes. Just looking at this, um, off the bat, I'm thinking it's probably gonna be Mark Fletcher one, Trevante, oh no, Mark Fletcher one, AJ Allen two, Trevante Citizen three, and Chris Johnson four. That's what I'm thinking it's going to look like. And I also think that they'll utilize Chris Johnson quite a bit as a change of pace back throughout the year. But we'll see. Because we saw him play a couple of games and he looked really good. All right. Next thing I want to talk about is what are my thoughts on what this means for the Hurricanes? Like, am I concerned about this? Like, what's my thoughts on it? So, my biggest concern is whenever someone transfers, because if you remember, Henry Parish actually transferred to the Hurricanes from Ole Miss. And I always get this concern on, like, what does our players transferring out, what does that signal to other players who might be coming in? So the way that Tyler Van Dyke struggled and struggled and struggled, he looked good sometimes, but he played bad. So when he finally left, I was like, I wonder what that looks like to freshman quarterbacks who are considering coming to Miami. Like, would that make them concerned about coming to Miami? Or would they just assume that Tyler Van Dyke was maybe scatterbrained and was thinking a little too much instead of just reacting? So that's always my concern whenever players do things in the Miami uniform or just on the team. It always makes me wonder, what are incoming players considering? So the fact that Henry Parish transferred into Ole Miss and then he ended up leaving the Hurricanes, that concerns me. It makes me wonder if other players are going to say, I'm not going to transfer there because Henry Parish transferred there and it didn't work out, which I know people transfer all the time. You can find times where it doesn't work out all the time. I understand that. But that is a concern of mine. It makes me wonder if other players are going to say, Henry Parish transferred there and he's a pretty good player, and if it didn't work out for him, it probably wouldn't work out for me, so I'm not going there. I've always wondered that, and that concerns me quite a bit, that he transferred in as a pretty good player. He played pretty well, and it didn't work out for him, and now he's leaving. So what is that going to mean to other players who are considering coming to Miami? Another thing is I want to talk about my general thoughts on this. I've always kept in my brain, in this crazy brain of mine, I've always thought, I got this scale, right? So the scale that I've always kept, and this goes from stuff that my kids say to me sometimes, or something I hear them say, or something that I might hear one of my employees say, or maybe something that'll happen with the Hurricanes. I have this scale that I keep, which is love it, like it, indifferent, dislike it, or hate it. So all the way up here to love it comes all the way down to hate, right? So when Tyler Van Dyke left, I wasn't indifferent. I didn't like it. I loved it. And I don't want people to think that I dislike the guy because I think he's probably a good guy. I don't know. I don't know him from anything. I don't know him at all. I don't dislike the guy, but I love the fact that he left because I felt like our Hurricanes needed a fresh start at quarterback. We needed something different. With this situation, I'm not indifferent to it. I don't love it. I don't like it. I don't dislike it. I think I kind of hate it. It's somewhere between hate and dislike with Henry Parish leaving. The reason why is he was actually one of my favorite players on this Hurricanes team. I know a lot of people like Mark Fletcher, but Henry Parish was my favorite running back in the running back room. And if you ask me why, I've always been an underdog kind of dude. I've always been that kind of guy. So when I see somebody who's undersized and plays and runs as hard as Henry Parish runs, like if you watch this dude, he's not real big at all. But he runs in between the tackles. He's not scared to do that. He's not the fastest dude. He's not the quickest dude. But he had field vision like crazy for our Hurricanes. And he played hard, and he was not scared to run through somebody. Or at least try to run through somebody. So that's the reason why I hate it. As far as us losing the player, Henry Parish, I think we'll be just fine because there's so many running backs in this running back room. So I think we'll be just fine losing the player. But I liked him, if that makes sense. I like the fact that, kind of similar to Xavier Restrepo and why Xavier is my favorite player on the team. When you look at these guys, it seems like they should not be performing as well as they perform. But the heart that they got, the drive, and their determination, and how they never quit, and how they may be undersized, but they figure it out anyway. I love those kind of players, and that's part of why he was my favorite running back on the team. So yeah, I think I lean towards hate. I hate the fact that he's leaving, but I understand. I'm not 100% sure why. No, I understand why he's leaving because the competition is heavy there. And then also he went from being the starting running back last year to losing quite a bit of snaps. He got hurt, but then once he got healthy, he still wasn't the lead back. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that Mark Fletcher, a freshman, came in and snatched his position like he did, and then you've got Trevante Citizen, who's getting more and more healthy every day, it did make sense for him to leave. I'm not quite sure why the head coach would say it's better for us that he's leaving. Obviously, he's going to leave, he's going to open up a scholarship for him. But it seems like if you've got a running back on the team with as much experience as Parish has, it seems like you would want that player around unless he was becoming some type of a cancer in the locker room. Like, that's the only thing I can think of. Something must have happened. But I don't know. Let me know y'all's thoughts on that. That's all that I got for you today. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with me, and I truly appreciate that. Take care. God bless. Peace.